Hello and welcome to another video of the best games of a letter, Arcade Edition, and this is for the letter J. Yes, in this video series I imagine, what if I could only choose 5 games per letter per system and then discard all others? What would I choose? So this means I'm not coming in it from the point of view of what games are most important to gaming history or even which games are most beloved by most people, but instead this is a personal list of the games I personally enjoy to play above all else. Now my choices here may surprise you, but this video series is really just a bit of fun, really to rekindle some old memories and help give people some suggestions of what games to try the next time that they're looking through their retro gaming fully laden lists, deciding what to play. Now this letter was a tough one to choose on, and I resisted the urge to cheat by choosing the Japanese name for Toki, which is of course Juju Dentetsu. But no, I'm stuck with the rules of choosing the Western release name, unless it only ever came out in Japan, of course. Okay, as I mentioned, this is for the arcades and the letter J. So without further ado, let us begin. Okay, now for my 5th choice, I've chosen the game Jump Coaster, made by Kaneko in 1983 and then licensed to Taito for the Western release that most people saw. Now what we have here is a great arcade game that has you play a masked superhero who must rescue the girl who's been trapped by a band of naughty monkeys and their fellow thieves who've taken control of the roller coaster at the fun fair. Now you run around the level and can complete it in one of 2 ways, either by collecting up all the bags of money left by the robbers to finally get the big bag of money at the end, or if you're less interested in score and by doing the right thing morally, you can make your way up to the top of the screen and jump on the carriage beneath the girl to rescue her. Now all of this is made tougher with those naughty marauding monkeys riding the roller coasters, climbing on the ropes or running along the platforms as you all the while dodged falling banana skins to slip you up on your heroic quest. Combine that alongside all the naughty monkeys, there's human thieves running around trying to take you out as well. Now even tougher for you is, despite you wearing a cape, clearly our hapless hero's quite deluded because he can't even take the smallest distance of falling, let alone fly anywhere. Hell, even a banana skin can take our hapless hero out of the action. No, but what we have here is Kaneko's answer to Donkey Kong, really. But for me, I actually find this a far more enjoyable game. It all moves really nice and quick, and there's lots of variety here, with one-way ladders and ropes to shimmy across, and roller coasters ridden by monkeys on the track, which always must be kept an eye on to avoid and jump over. Like Donkey Kong, the game that inspired it, it's a tough game as well, especially as you really ideally need a 4-way joystick as opposed to the typical 8-way joystick to play it. But even so, I keep on going back to this game. I just find it such a addictive and fun title to play. Now sadly, a lot of people will have missed out on this game, as outside of the MSX it never really saw a home port, and I think that's such a crying shame. Now overall, this is a great little arcade game and it needs to be played by more, so please give this a try. Okay, that brings me on to my 4th choice, and I've gone for the interesting title Joe and Mack Returns, released in 1994 by Data East. Now this one has only recently come on my radar when fellow YouTuber Megadrew, and friend of the show and the podcast I do as well, covered this game as part of his video Top 10 Single Screen Arcade Platform Games, and he mentioned this as one of the games. Incidentally, it's a great fun channel. Now since that point I've taken his recommendation and started to play this game, and I've fallen in love with it. I think it's such a lot of fun, mixing in elements of Toplin's Snow Brothers game with bits of Bobble into the mix as well. Now this was quite a departure from the first Joe and Mack Caveman Ninja game, which of course was a standard scrolling platform affair and was followed by 2 pretty fun SNES sequels as well. But on this 4th one, Data East tried to turn things around by doing a single screen platform affair, and I think it's actually a great refreshing take on the sort of game. Now in the game you jump around the level using your club to bash the enemies and collect the dazed creatures and putting them in your sack. You then only have a limited time to hurl the unconscious creatures as a weapon before they wake up. And that's it really. Destroy all the enemies, rescue the imprisoned girls and collect up all the goodies to proceed. But it's all done with so much addictive fun and charm, with there being a generous array of distinctly different locations on offer, and all the enemies are bursting with their own character and personalities, which really keeps you playing. It's all just so much fun really. Now at the end of each area you're presented with a big boss section, who of course must be taken out by the same way of picking up the enemies and hurling them at him. Now for the longest time this game passed a lot of people by, as it never saw a home release and only a limited arcade run. So although MAME emulates it, many would have not thought to look for it really. Thankfully in recent years this game has had a little bit of a resurgence, with both Nintendo Switch re-releasing it and Antstream streaming it as well. So finally this game is getting the light shone on it, and it's great to see people being able to play this gem of a game again today. Right, let's go on to my number 3 game, and this may surprise you as it's perhaps that it's so low on my list, but I've chosen the Williams 1982 classic arcade game Joust. Now I'm sure this game needs no introduction, but in case there is a few younger viewers out there who don't know what this game is, well basically it's about knights with lances riding ostriches, and the enemies are on giant buzzards. Now the purpose of the game is to attack the enemies with your lance by flapping higher than your opponents to knock them off their steed. This turns the knight into a fallen glowing egg, which must be picked up by you riding over it to take the opponent out. But if you leave that egg too long, then the enemy knight will rehatch and call his bird steed again to rejoin the action. Now this game was hugely popular back in the day and considered on many lists as the best two-player game of all time. Now I don't personally think that, and I don't really feel the game deserves quite that level of accolades, but I will say it is a huge amount of fun, and particularly in two-player, and it's definitely worthy of the classic status that it's garnered over the years. And it's understandable really, because there's so much going on under the hood with this game, with you having to battle inertia and the gravity as you frantically flap your wings just to get that height above your opponents for that perfect strike. It's a really skillful and enjoyable game. Now the game was designed by John Newcomer, and I've always enjoyed his offbeat weird arcade games such as Splat and Sinister, and although the game Joust is his most famous, there are others all worth playing as well. Now playing it today, I mean it had loads and loads of home ports on pretty much every system. It also appears on the Midway Arcade Treasures Volume 1 pack, which was on the Xbox, PS2 and GameCube era, and it also appears on the Midway Arcade Origins collection as well, which was the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. So there's plenty of ways to come across this game and give it a go. Of course, Arcade Club does have this game, so there's plenty of opportunity to play it on real hardware as well. Okay, now we come to my number 2 choice, and I've gone for the SNK 1984 hidden gem called Jumping Cross. Now I adore this game, with it being an overhead motocross racer, mixing in elements of bump and jump and excite bike to make the perfect blend of a real arcade classic. Now the idea is simple here: race around the track, bashing into the opponents to crash them out the way and gain points, whilst trying to get to all the gates of the track before the timer runs out. Now to help you, there's also a jump button which allows you to land on opponents in front of you, and if you combine it with a ramp, it allows you to do a mega jump, clearing loads of distance to quickly make your way along the track, providing there isn't a corner up ahead. Now alongside the other racers, there's also wildlife to contend with, who will block your path, and there's rough terrain to slow your progress. Now in summary, this game is just brilliant fun, with so much personality to all the racers, a nice variety of tracks, and a lovely fast-paced tune playing in the background. Yeah, overall I actually prefer this, I have to say, to Excite Bike for my arcade fix. I think it just has so much fun and character bursting through every scene. Now sadly this game never ever saw a home port. It's never appeared on any of the SNK game compilations, but thankfully recently Antstream, who they clearly know their stuff, have managed to save this gem from obscurity by placing this on their streaming selection. So outside of MAME, that's a great way to play it. Okay, let's go on to my number one choice for the letter J in the arcades, and I've chosen the brilliant shooter Juno first, released in 1983 by Konami. And this gem of a blaster, it really needs to be played by more. It is so good. Now, taking clear inspiration from Nintendo's ill-fated Radar Scope game, this runs with that idea but makes a far more entertaining game, with great attack waves, the ability to fly forward and back in the screen, and taking out and blasting all the enemies out of the sky. Each attack wave is vastly different here as well, with a wide array of ships, and each wave is a genuine pleasure to reach, being distinctly different. So it really drives you on wanting to get that little bit further. There's other nice touches here as well, such as small sphere space capsules that come along, which when you shoot them releases an astronaut. If you collect them up, then it gives you points and it allows you to also take out the enemies for more bonus points. There's a second button as well, which is a warp, which you have 3 warps available to you per wave. And when you press it, you'll be randomly placed somewhere else on the screen. So it's a really risky maneuver, but it's great to get you out of a bind if you know you're about to die from a bullet. Yes, there's so much cool stuff in the game like this, and I just can't stop playing this gem of a title, with it fast becoming seriously one of my favourite old school blasters. Now it did get reasonable ports back in the day on the C64, Atari 8-bit and MSX, but sadly nowhere else. It also seems to always be left off any of the Konami collections, and there's been countless numbers of those, so it's a crying shame. But thankfully MAME, as you can see here, runs it beautifully, and occasionally you see it out in the wild at some of these retro events as well. So there you go, that was my top 5 games for the letter J, and it was tough to choose, but I'm really happy with my selection. Of course, though, there was always going to be a few big hitters and lots of honourable mentions that failed to make my list here, so I'm going to briefly mention them here. Okay, the first big hitter there is Namco's Junior Pac-Man, released in 1983, and this was the 5th in the Pac-Man series, so they were really trying everything to keep this cash cow of Pac-Man going. To be fair though, there's lots of nice additions to this game. There's scrolling mazes, and there's moving power-ups that make the pellets large as they move across. This is a risk reward because as Junior Pac-Man goes into these larger pellets that are left behind, he gets 50 points, far more than the standard pellets, but he moves slower, so you have to decide how you're going to play it for skill and points. The game also tells, through cutscenes in the game, a weird story of a blossoming romance of Junior Pac-Man who falls in love with a ghost called Yum Yum as you progress through the game. It's all very twee, and if you love Pac-Man, this is genuinely a great addition to the series. And it's bizarre and shameful really that this arcade version never seems to show up in any of the Namco compilations, with it always being left on the cutting room floor. Now, another nice game is Joust 2 Survival of the Fittest, released in 1986 by Williams. This was very out of date compared to the other games released of the similar time, and so as an arcade game it didn't do very well. And it's a real shame because there's a great level of change made to this game to make it better in many ways over the original. This time it's switched to a vertical screen, and it allows you to switch your steed from the standard ostrich to the slower but more stronger at attacking Pegasus steed at any point in the game. But the thing I like about it, there's so much variety in all the levels. There's flying bats and golden egg bonuses that you can collect up, so it's great, particularly in single player over the original, because there's more of a progression and far more different map designs for you to take on. Now thankfully this game did appear in the Midway Arcade Treasure Volume 1 pack on the Xbox, PS2 and GameCube era, and also on the Midway Arcade Origins pack on the Xbox 360 and PS3 era. Outside of that you can play it on MAME as you're seeing here. Okay, another fun little game that's worthy of mention is Jump Bug, released in 1981 and published by Rockola, but actually it was developed by Alpha Denshi. This is a cute little shooter platformer really that has you drive your little Volkswagen Beetle bouncing from skyscraper to skyscraper to collect the loot and shoot all the enemy aliens. Now another well-loved game that failed to make my list was Jackal, or Top Gunner as it's known in the US, and another game released in 1986 by Konami. Now this overhead Jeep blaster is a huge amount of fun, with you trying to rescue hostages and blow everything up on the screen. Yeah, I really do enjoy this game, and to be honest, for the longest time this was on my top 5 for this letter, so give this game a go as well. Now another arcade favourite of mine worthy of mention is Jungle Hunt, released in 1982 by Taito. Now originally this was called Jungle King and featured basically Tarzan, but Taito soon ran into copyright infringement trouble, so they quickly replaced the hero from Tarzan to a British hunter or explorer type of character instead. Now I love the gameplay with this, as gameplay wise it's all about different stages. So in the first you're swinging from vine to vine and getting your timing right. The next you're diving into crocodile infested waters, taking out all the crocodiles as you swim your way across. The next is jumping rock falls, timing your jumps perfectly to make it all the way up the mountain to save your girl. Then you come to the final level where you see your kidnapped love who's landed herself in hot water, literally, as she's being cooked by the local cannibal natives. You must jump over the natives to save your girl. Finally, for big hitters, there's Jurassic Park by Sega. Now this shooter's a lot of fun in the arcades, with all the scenes of the movie depicted really well for the time as you make your way through this prehistoric park. Okay, so that was the big hitters, but there's lots of lesser known gems I think are worthy of a mention as well. First off, there's Namco's J-League Soccer v Shoot game, released in 1994, and this is a great rival to Taito's arcade football efforts that we've mentioned in previous videos. Now, this, not only being a really good arcade football game, is also officially licensed with Japanese football teams and players, which is a nice touch. Now, another hidden gem I think worthy of mention is Jumping Jack, released in 1984 by Universal. This is a cute little game having you jump from seesaw platform to seesaw platform, flinging the monkeys in the air for points and collecting all the fruit. Now another cute arcade game is the Jolly Jogger, released in 1982 by Taito. Now this is a painter game where you play an American football player who must run around, dodge all the enemies and draw boxes for points. It's simple, but it's a huge amount of fun, so this is another little gem that's worthy to play. Another one to mention is JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Now this is a Capcom 2D fighter, released in 1998 and was based on the manga and anime of the same name. Now if you know your Capcom fighters, you know what to expect here, and it's more of the same, which is not a bad thing. But what you have here is a nice array of Madcap characters on display, so if you're looking for something a little bit different from the Street Fighter norm, then give this game a go, you won't be disappointed. Now finally we have the cute run and gun game called JJ Squawkers, released in 1993 by Athena and developed by Able. Now, this is really fun, featuring, well, the instructions say a duck, although to me it looks more like a green parrot, who's on a mission to rescue the captured residents of the village Pistachio. What you have here is 5 stages of run and gun frantic action, all accompanied with great music and some great boss battles, meaning this is a real solid little gem of a game and needs to be played by more. Right, okay, there you go. That was my top 5 for the letter J. Now, it was certainly a tough letter to choose from, but I'm really happy with the choices that I've made here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and I can't wait to hear your own suggestions of what games you would have chosen for this letter. So look out for my next video covering the letter J. It's certainly going to be a tough one to decide.